And now to the much awaited electricity conversation. The Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, NERC, has announced a significant increase in electricity prices for Band A customers. Now, these customers representing roughly 15% of the nation's 12 million electricity users. You want to ask what happened to the over 200 million people will see their rates jump from 66 naira per kilowatt hour to 225 naira per kilowatt hour. Now, additionally, due to not meeting the minimum required electricity supply hours, the Commission moved some Band A customers to Band B. In Abuja, Nigerian, I have joining me Lanre Elatuyi, Electricity Market Analyst. Thank you, Lanre, for joining me today.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon.
Okay, so before we delve into this conversation, we heard stories of the increase in the price of natural gas, and then a lot of us saw the hike in electricity tariff coming, but maybe not this much, really. What necessitated this increase in gas pricing? I want us to start, from the very foundation.
Okay, thank you so much for inviting me. If you look at my 2024, okay, let me start from here. Last year, the regulator NERC called all the distribution companies to put in their rate case filing. So filing, and they put in their OPEX, their CAPEX, and what the end user's tariff should be. And NERC actually approved that. So if you look at some of the assumptions and indices used, or parameters used in calculating the end user's tariff, one of them is the FX rate, the dollar to naira rate. So the rate used when the present tariff was calculated was naira $19. But we all know today what the dollar rate is. Then apart from that, gas is a very big component in our electricity portfolio, in the sense that about 80% of our generation comes from gas. So the price of gas in the last tariff setting was $2.18. About 2 days ago, we heard the announcement that the gas price has increased from $2.18 to $2.42. So this increase in price of gas, the increase in dollar rate, has necessitated the fact that the generation companies have to increase their cost of production. So the increase of production has gone up. So the marginal cost of generating electricity has gone up. So the gas price is a pass-through cost. The cost has to pass through to the end users.
All right,
so
Larry, let me come in here. Let me come in here. You said something. Did you say 80%?
Yes, about 80% of our generation portfolio is from thermal plants. So we have majorly two hydro plants. Okay, about 3 hydro plants, Jeba, Shiroro, and Kenji. But if you look at our generation portfolio, almost 80% of our generation is from thermal gas.
Okay.
Thermal plants, rather.
All right. Now, let's look at this particular increase. The federal government has increased electricity tariff. However, this is only targeted at some people. That's the Band A users. Help us clarify those who fall within this band and, why this is only targeted at them, so I know if I'm there or not.
Okay, I think we need to commend the regulator for this strategic move. The Band A customers are customers that are on 20 hours and above every day of supply. So what they did was that, taking into cognizance of the realities of the economy, Nigerian economy right now, so NERC felt that not all customers would be able to pay the cost-reflective tariff. So what they've done is to look at customers that are able to pay, those that have the resources to pay. And what they did is to increase tariff for those under Band A alone, while leaving other bands without any increment. So it's a way of cross-subsidization, so that the rich and those that can afford electricity, the true cost of electricity, can actually relieve those who cannot pay for electricity. The alternative is for government to pay subsidy if cost-reflective tariff is not going to be charged. But we all know that government does not have the money to pay subsidy right now. So the only way we can solve this problem is for tariff to be increased. But NERC was wise in their judgment not to increase tariff for every customers because of the fact that Nigerians are still growing under the pains of subsidy removal of petroleum, and the economy is really biting on Nigeria. So it was a strategic move on the part of the regulator, I so believe.
All right, that's quite interesting. But, moving from over 60 naira to over 200 naira per kilowatt hour isn't something that comes easy. So how are we then sure that some of those people on band A would like to remain on band A? If I'm not comfortable paying that amount, or if it's not, it doesn't make business sense for me to pay that amount, where do I go to ensure that, will probably take me down to band B?
Okay, if you're to look at it critically, there's something they call value of lost load. That's the economics of outages. So if I'm not being supplied, if I'm not ready to pay 25 naira per kilowatt hour, what alternative do I have? So that means I have to probably spend more on captive generation, running my generator with diesel, running my generator with petrol. So if we look at it, it's still quite cheaper for this set of customers to still be on the grid. So it makes more economic sense for them to pay 25 naira per kilowatt hour than to go and be spending money on generator or buying fuel and diesel. So I believe some of them will prefer to remain on band A, provided that they get the required number of hours. I think that's what NERC has tried to assure Nigerians, that they will indeed get the number of hours they're supposed to get. So I believe personally, if I'm getting 22 or 20 to
225 naira
every day, I think that's quite fair.
All right, so we're told that the overarching objective of the Commission in the consideration of this tariff application is actually the creation of a financially sustainable electricity market, providing adequate and reliable power supply to drive the Nigerian economy. I'd like you to expatiate on this.
The regulator has dual responsibilities. Number one, to protect the customers, the end users, from exploitation. Number two, to encourage investments in the power sector, knowing fully well that power sector is highly capital intensive. So Nigeria currently, we're suffering from resource adequacy being impaired. So in the sense that our generation capacity is drilling every day. So in order to encourage more investors to come into the market, so they need to be sure of the path to cost recovery. Nobody wants to come and invest billions of naira into the power system and they're not sure of recovering their cost. So the liquidity crisis in the Nigeria power sector is so evident to all. So the regulator has to ensure that the investors that are coming to put in their money, number one, they have a reasonable return on investments. Number two, that they actually get a price that is reflective of prudent and actual cost of production. So it's just for sustainability of their businesses that this tariff hike is necessitated.
All right, so does this mean, I'm just looking at all of this, and my question is, does it mean other users do not need stable electricity? Or are we saying electricity is now a luxury? And then I'm curious if we have to ration what is available, which is about maybe 4,000 megawatts or a little above that. I hope those, on other bands will still get at least 5 to 7 or even 10 hours of electricity per day, because there are smaller businesses or even micro businesses that require power, to run their businesses. What happens to these people? Because I'm looking at, if somebody is paying 225 naira, per kilowatt hour, I want to believe that not any artisan, at the discos or, looking at the value chain generally, nobody should give an excuse for giving them anything less than 20 hours of power supply. So if we're going to ration that and ensure that this set of people have 20 hours power supply, won't these other people be affected? And then what happens to their businesses? Because they are humans also, they are Nigerians also. Maybe the crime they have committed is not having enough money to be on band A.
Actually, I agree with you. I think that's one of the fears. Fears and that every Nigerian is catered for. Energy access, there shouldn't be any partiality for Nigerians to have access to energy. We have a problem at hand, and the problem is quite enormous. If you look at March 2024, the average energy generation for 2024 is about 3,000 naira 60 megawatt. Will there be enough for every Nigerian That's still a question that we're trying to ask. But I know that the regulator is trying everything possible to make sure that every consumer, every Nigerian is actually well treated. So there are concerns, and your concern is quite valid that, okay, is it that the discos will now prioritize their band A customers and neglect other consumers? I think the regulator is quite looking at that, and the consumer advocacy group, will ensure that every consumer, every end user at other banks are actually well attended to. Well, that fear exists, but I believe the people in charge are doing something to address that. So it's not as if probably they are not going to be served. They are going to be served. So it's just a way of improving the sector.
All right.
The sector for now is actually troubled.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, there's a lot to talk about. I mean, I would have loved us to talk about investment in other sources of energy, so we do not just rely on something that isn't really working as much as we want it to, but that will be for another day. Thank you so much, Lanre, for your time on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.